Good morning. I'll call this meeting to order. We have a quorum. All three commissioners are present. Flag salute, Commissioner Fund.
Please stand.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated.
I'll entertain the motion for the approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of December 9th, 2013.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Are there any additions, deletions, corrections, changes? Then I'll call for the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Public comment. Janet Cherry.
Can-
You have your 3 minutes of fame, so come up to the
Thank you.
mic.
I'm Janet Cherry from Washington Department of Health, and I'm here and joined by two of my colleagues, Karina Hayes and Mark Mashesky. We're here to provide support and answer any questions the commissioners may have on the Group B rule. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Today we have employee recognition. We have a couple of them. The first one appears to be Larry Mason's not here. I heard he was in a dog fight and lost at 5 stitches. So the first one I'll call up then is to accept the award. Could Cheryl McGee please come forward?
She wasn't expecting this. Suckered me in again.
You can't trust anybody, can you?
It's hard, it's hard.
This is a certificate of appreciation for Cheryl McGee, Lewis County Community Development, with sincere thanks for 20 years of dedicated service. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I have one more story to tell. Back in 2003, 2004, I was putting together my permits for the house that I built, and it was wells and building plans and everything else. And I've heard stories that the building department and permit process was difficult. It is, but Cheryl McGee walked me through that process. She didn't say what the right answer was, but she gave me enough information that I could do things right. And I really appreciate the time I spent with the permit.
Absolutely, our
Getting
pleasure.
Schulte through it was a major task.
Yeah, it's fine.
If I'd have known you were going to be commissioner, it could have been different.
You were very, very helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Larry Unselman. Come on forward. This is such a momentous occasion, we couldn't just do it in the back room over at Public Service. So, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Certificate of appreciation. This certificate is awarded to Larry Unselman of Public Works in recognition of 40 years of valuable service to Lewis County. 40 years of service. Thank you much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Nobody take the picture, so we'd like to go through the motion.
Okay.
Pictures
Okay.
being taken.
He's taking it. Yes. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I move that we approve the notice agenda
Items 1 through 2, resolution number 13-567 to 13568.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Yes, sir.
I'm here to talk about the resolution number 13-567. I'm Kevin Hansen. I'm the jail administrator for the Sheriff's Office. And I ask you today to approve this resolution, and it's for posting of a request for qualifications for an inmate telephone system in the jail. The existing phone system has been there for 15 years, and laws have changed, times have changed, technology's changed, and we ask that we think it's in the best public interest to go to request for qualifications on this.
Aren't we being required to do this too, Kevin, with the new law that's coming in?
Our current provider is not in compliance with the new FCC regulations.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
you.
Kevin.
One of you.
Good morning, Suzette.
Good morning, Commissioners. Suzette Smith, Lewis County Auditor's Office Financial Services Division. I am here to present to you Resolution Number 13-568, which pertains to the competitive bidding dispensing with the advertisement and formal sealed bidding process for those purchases and leases from $5,000 to $25,000, which this also allows us to just obtain telephonic quotes from 3 responsible bidders instead of having to publish sealed bids.
Any further discussion on the notice agenda? Then I'll call for the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Notice agenda is approved.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda, items 3 through 11, resolutions 13-569 through 13-577.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Gross.
Item number 2, resolution 13-569 approves 233 regular warrants for payment against the county in the amount of $680,025.01. Item number 4, Mr. Dick Larman.
Dick Larman, Lewis Economic Development Council, speaking to resolution number 13570, looking for a .09 agreement with the county and Centralia College at Morton with in partnership with the Fire Mountains Arts Council to further their partnership on the theater there in Morton, installing some new equipment for future use.
Any other questions?
Just a comment, I'll make a comment on this. This came to us, the Fire Mountain Arts Council requested some funding because they have to replace their projector with a digital projector. They're no longer able to show their movies. This is an important part, and this is a part of the tourism budget that we budget every year for, of the 09 money for tourism projects, and that's what this is going for. Thank you, Dick.
Thank you.
Mr. Larry Grove. I see that we have a cafeteria plan. Where is the cafeteria?
Well, Bill, I'm sure you would know.
If there were such a thing.
I couldn't resist. Okay, the first one is amending the county's Section 125 cafeteria plan. Really has nothing to do with food bill, has to do with unreimbursed medical expenses. The IRS recently published a new notice that would allow the employees that participate to carry $500 forward to the next plan year, which is advantageous to the employee, so we would recommend that we would amend the plan to allow that. It would replace the carryover grace period, which was put in place in 2005, which allowed for 2 months and 15 days incurring medical expenses in the next year to be paid out of the prior year. The $500 will make it a lot easier for employees to make that election and not worry about losing the money if they don't incur expenses during the plan year. So the next one is reclassifying Crime Victims Witness Assistance Fund. Historically, that fund was established by the board in 1982. It's a program managed by the prosecutor's office. The money is kept in currently what's called a trust fund. Annually, at the end of the year, about this time of year, we transfer any cash available in the fund back to current expense. Prosecutor has to be matched exactly with expenses in the prosecutor's office for crime victims. Under GASB Statement 54, there's now a provision where we can restrict funds in a county special revenue fund. So there's additional protections that the money sitting in a county special revenue fund has the same protections it would have historically had in a trust fund. And the additional advantage of it, it will be full reporting on the county financial statements where the money included in the transactions back and forth will be reflected in the county's financial statements.
Larry, just for purposes of the public, could you state again what the GASB is?
Governmental Accounting Standards Board. They're the national board that sets standards for governments in state, local government across the country.
Thank you.
The next one is closing a special revenue fund, Sheriff's Airplane 162. In July of this year, the airplane was sold. The purpose for the fund is gone. The proceeds from the plane, it's recommended that they be moved to the drug fund that the sheriff manages. The original source of the funds to purchase the airplane back in the 90s was from drug-related confiscation, either cash or property that was sold. So it's logical leap that the proceeds from the plane be put back into the same purpose fund for use by the sheriff's office. Currently, there's $41,837.
Thank you.
The next one is closing the 1992 Bond Redemption Fund 202. The fund was originally established for the 1992 limited tax obligation bonds that the county sold. It was later refunded in 1999. We didn't close this fund at the time of the first refunding because the 1999 bonds was what's called a wraparound refinancing, so it included the refunding and new money, so we wanted to leave the fund open until such time as the wraparound money was refunded. So this fund has been sitting out there for a few years. It doesn't have any cash in it. It's just a clerical cleanup to put the fund to bed. The next one is 2003 Debt Service Fund 203. These were bonds that were originally issued for the construction and upfitting of the new jail. In 2012, the bonds were refunded, which is typical on a 10-year call date. You will refund the bonds. Any residual cash would be moved to the new fund, which is 2012 Debt Service Funds. There happens to be 81 cents in that fund. So that's high finance for this morning. And the last one is yet another debt service fund. It's a 1999 Debt Service Fund 204. This would have been the fund that was the wraparound funding, where it actually refunded the 92 bonds and it issued new money. The purpose of the new money was primarily for the remodel of this building. And in 2009, those bonds were refunded. So any residual from the 99 bond fund would go into the refunding issue, which is the 2009 Debt Service Fund 209. There's $4,189.89.
Were these bonds refunded or were they refinanced?
Refunded. We're actually on a call date, the bonds that are not yet paid, or you buy state and local securities that it's like an annuity where it'll pay the bondholders over the future of those bonds as they mature. So it's just, and typically you do it because there's an advantage for interest rate in the marketplace. We typically save a lot of money by doing it. So that's pretty much all I have, unless there's questions.
When we refunded these bonds back in 2011,
9 was 2009.
the last one, when I was chair, when I signed all those silly papers, anyway, we saved over $1 million in the.
Correct.
For the county. In the
Right.
funding.
Yeah, it was a completely different marketplace in 1999 than it was in 2009. So, okay.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Archie?
Good morning, Commissioners. Archie Smith with Lewis County Human Resources. I am here to present item number 11 on the agenda, resolution number 13-577, approving a collective bargaining agreement with AFSCME 1341S. This is the sheriff's clerks. Basically, this is a one-year agreement dating from January 1st, 2014 to December 31st, 2014. This is pretty much just a rollover contract. They accepted they had a Me Too provision in there, and so they got the increase to $900 that we did earlier in the year, and then they have accepted the $950 effective for health and welfare contribution effective January 1st, 2014. They did select as their top plan in the WCIF insurance as a $750, so their plans go from $750 and work their way down from there. We also said we'd look into some VIVA language for them potentially. Nothing has really moved on that. They did accept the 1.5 COLA because that was part of their old contract. There is no COLA outside of what was in place last year. For 2014, steps are still in place, but it's pretty much just a rollover contract.
Any questions? Any questions on the consent agenda? Then I'll call for the questions. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. The next part of this meeting will be a series of hearings. The hearings will start with a staff report, followed by a question and answer period. We will then close the question and answer period and open the hearing for formal testimony. The way this normally works is if after the staff gives their presentation, if anybody has a question, come up to the mic and ask a question. If you have a statement you want to make, please wait for the second part of the hearing, which is the formal testimony. And you have 3 minutes to make a comment during the formal testimony. So we will start this morning with the hearing on the third 2013 Budget Amendment Resolution.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lara Seiler, Budget Fiscal Services. I'm requesting approval of the third
Excuse me, there's two of you. Could you introduce both of you?
I have with me Becky Sisson, Budget Fiscal Services. We're here to request approval of the third 2013 Budget Amendment Resolution number 13-578. Notice of the public hearing was published in the East County Journal on December 4th and 11th. This third amendment includes $53,224 for sick and vacation payouts, adjustments for grants and contracts, increases for juror costs, professional services, utilities, and other unanticipated costs. I will provide the total change of the amendment and that portion that only affects the current expense fund, which is the county's operating fund. A more detailed description of each line item change is available in the front of the room. The total budget amendment for all funds was noticed as a revenue increase of $342,915, an expenditure increase of $600,308, which is a decrease in fund balance of $257,393. Changes since the noticed amount resulted in a total increase in expenditures of $105,200 and $54,200 in revenue. The new total of this budget amendment is all funds. Revenues increased $397,115. Expenditures increased $705,508, which is a decrease in fund balance of $308,393. The current expense fund portion of this amendment is revenues increased $23,204. Expenditures increased $300,529, which is a decrease in fund balance of $277,325.
Are there any questions? Are there any questions? If there are no questions, I will close the question and answer period. And I would like to ask if your opening comments, would you like them incorporated into the record of the hearing?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Has anybody signed up to speak? Is there any testimony on this? I will then close the hearing for public testimony, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the budget amendment.
I move that we approve the 2013 Budget Amendment Resolution Number 13-578.
Second.
Motion and it's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? And I'll call for the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Budget amendment is approved. Our next hearing will be on ordinance 1252, Group B, Public Water Systems. The same rules will apply. First, a staff report, question and answer period, and then we will have an opportunity for public testimony. You're going to speak on this at all?
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Sue Kennedy with Lewis County Public Health and Social Services, and with me is Ron Pollock, professional engineer who works on water system and is the representative for the stakeholder committee who developed this ordinance, and he sits on your technical advisory committee for the Lewis County Board of Health.
Explain the stakeholders and who all was on there, if you please.
The stakeholders on the group represented different groupings throughout Lewis County. We included engineers. We had 3 engineers, a realtor. We had interviews with different banking institutions. We had owners of water supplies, operational managers for water systems, and oversight of sampling and compliance issues, as well as the community development director, the public health director, and on occasion, the building official for Lewis County and myself. I understand that Commissioner Gross will give a brief briefing on this.
Brief?
Yeah. This ordinance came about because the state, in their budgeting process, eliminated the oversight for Group B water systems, which are systems that are larger than 2 and smaller than 50?
15.
And so we feel like to protect the public health of our people, we needed to do something to allow some kind of inspection process and some kind of a process to occur where these systems would not run rampant and cause health issues later on down the road in the county. Most of these systems operate very, very well and very, very efficiently. There are some out there who are running on a shoestring and need some oversight to improve, to upgrade, or to just to keep it in check and make sure that we're not getting contaminants in the water. So we have elected to pass, and I don't know if we were the first county to do this. I imagine there will be more following us if we are the first. But we were one of the first counties to adopt an ordinance to actually take the place of the state regulatory authority and oversight on Group B systems. Okay?
Thank you, Commissioner.
That's the summary.
Are there any further statements or any questions? Are you finished with your staff report, or?
That was the staff report.
That was the staff report.
I would like to mention that currently in Lewis County, there are 342 Group B public water supplies. They serve 5,000 to 7,000 people in our county, a significant portion of our population, which we felt deserved us to keep an eye and be sure that they were being given water that was of safe quality and quantity. The stakeholder was a very interactive process. We began meetings in April of 2013 and completed our final document in November of this year. It gave opportunity for input from all of the different representatives who would be impacted by this action, and I think it is a very solid document.
Does the board have any questions? Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
Didn't expect I would pass this opportunity up, did you? Ron Averill, Greater Centralia area. I guess I'd like to know a little bit more about this because, the interest I've got is I know that having had to deal with these Class B systems, inspections weren't very frequent. And I'm not sure how you're going to handle the Thurston County Water District, which owns quite a chunk of these within the county. Are you going to let them do it, or are they going to be inspected like the others? Are you going to handle them as a unit or as their individual?
Currently, the ordinance doesn't include routine inspections of the Group B public water supplies. It does include that should we get a complaint or a problem with a water supply, they will be looked at on an individual basis. So, for example, if the system was run or owned by a satellite management agency or an owner who owns more than one system, we don't anticipate that we would treat them any differently than we would a single ownership by someone. We would contact them, talk to their operator, possibly meet on site, and do an assessment. The ordinance includes the ability to do an assessment on a system that is found to be problematic. Things like running out of water, presence, changes in water quality would be addressed on an individual basis.
Most of the systems that are owned by Thurston County are Group A systems.
Are what?
They're Group A, not Group B.
No,
We
quite a
actually
few of them are.
have 48 systems in Lewis County owned by Thurston PUD.
How many was that again?
How many?
48.
How many
48.
Group B, how many Group A?
2 Group A's, and all the rest are Group B's. So they own quite a large chunk.
That's what I thought.
Yes, they do. I have worked closely with their operator manager, who is Kim Gooby. She's been good to work with. They do a good job of keeping us informed. The other large owners are Skyline Pump owns quite a few, Murky and Sons, and we basically treat them the same as we did individual. The advantage they have is they have more operators and more technical people that you can talk to when you work with them.
I guess one of my concerns is that, you got a system going bad because it's getting extra nitrogen in it. The average person doesn't know that when they're drinking the water.
No.
And we just had a testimony here last week about a well that was testing out high in nitrogen. And that was principally because an outsider not on the system complained about it. And you might remember the problem that we had up at in Mossy Rock with the high nitrogen that was going in that area. How do we have some way of protecting the public?
Well, we
against nitrogen levels?
currently the regulation addresses 3 major contaminants primarily that are acute health risks, and they include bacteria, it includes nitrate, and it includes arsenic. We have adopted in the ordinance a continued monitoring yearly for bacteria. We have included, just as the Group B used to include, which was once every 3 years on nitrate. On arsenic, we have moved the MCL from the 50 parts per billion down to the 10 parts per billion, which is consistent with the state Group A WAC. The systems that have arsenic presence will be notifying their owners if they exceed the 10 parts per billion. As long as they're under the 50 parts per billion, a pre-existing system will not be required to treat, but will be required to test every 3 years to be sure it's not changing. The nitrate is something that we are watching, and in the ordinance we have included that if they exceed 5 parts per billion, they will be moved to quarterly monitoring so we can identify whether there are particular seasonalities to the changes in the nitrate. If through those 4 quarters they don't exceed 10 parts per million on the nitrate, they go to a yearly monitoring. So as they get over 5 but are less than 10, and 10 is the maximum contaminant level for nitrates. We currently have 7 systems on quarterly monitoring. Of those systems, I believe we will end up with 3 that will continue with the quarterly monitoring, and the rest will probably go to annual. I'm still waiting for that 4th test this year.
Okay, you use the term test a number of times in there, which indicates that there's some requirement to test. Who does it and how often? And you said that one of those tests is 3. Is it the owner of the system that does the test and then brings it in, or?
If the system has a satellite management agency on contract, we will usually see the sample taken by the satellite management agency on a quarterly basis. If the system predates 1994, there was not a requirement for satellite management agency, so the water system owner has the option to hire one or to take the samples himself, and so that will vary.
But this regulation tells them that they have that obligation.
This regulation does include the obligation that if their nitrate exceeds 5 parts per million on any given sample, they will go to quarterly monitoring, yes.
And it requires a sample on a continuing basis.
Yes, sir, it does.
That's what I'm trying to find.
It is, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions? Then I will close the question and answer period. Would you like your opening comments be incorporated into the record of the hearing?
Yes, I would.
Yes, please.
Does the board have any statements it would like to make? I see no one has signed up to speak on that's the planning policies, that's the next hearing. For this, I do want to say one thing. I have
Is
a
there somebody out there?
statement. No. You want to talk on the water systems? Okay. So the one thing is, these water systems used to be inspected by the state. People who have water from a water system kind of expect there's somebody monitoring and inspecting the water systems. And so when the state discontinued that, I have my own well, and I inspect that infrequently. I think I've had it inspected twice in 7 years, but I know that's my system and I'm responsible. If you're on a water system, you assume, there's an assumption that people are watching that water system. And there would have been a gap if the county hadn't stepped forward. We don't want to make this arduous or expensive, but we want to make a process available that the county can go out and take a look at systems if they're going to be a problem and somebody's watching that. So that's why we reached out to the stakeholder groups. We brought all kinds of people together who are on the inspected side, not from the county government side, and they came up with a very, very good process. So,
And I would add to that, that the group that was put together that reviewed this, as Sue mentioned, included people from virtually all walks of life, but and it was an arduous process, really. I was kind of amazed at how some of the comments that we got back regarding their concerns and issues, and the group pretty well covered those issues, which was really well done. Ron, you guys are to be commended for your efforts on that.
And I would like to echo those comments too. We really like citizen input on things we're doing, and this was a wonderful model for other committees to look at. Thank you again.
so I'll entertain a motion for ordinance 1252.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve ordinance 1252 regarding Group B public water systems.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Then I'll call for the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ordinance 1252 is passed. The next hearing we will have is amending Lewis County's countywide planning policies, resolution number 13579. This will operate the same as the other ones. We'll start out with a staff report, followed by a question and answer period, followed by public testimony, and then we will consider the resolution.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lee Napier representing Lewis County Community Development. I'm the director, and with me is Stan May, our long-range planner. We'll be speaking on Resolution 13-579, and we're before the board today asking you to approve the 2013 countywide planning policies amendments, which have only minor amendments that are recommended by staff, and I'll let Stan address those changes.
Thank you, Lee. The countywide planning policies are there to establish a framework from which county and city comprehensive plans are developed and adopted. The Planned Growth Committee is the venue that we use to review these. The Planned Growth Committee is made up of representatives from the county and all the municipalities in the county. The Planned Growth Committee reviewed the countywide planning policies this year, but had no substantive changes to recommend. Although staff did request some minor updates to clarify the appendices. One recommendation cleaned up the schedule used by the Planned Growth Committee and better incorporated it into the document. Staff also recommended that the county population allocations, county population estimates, and county population projections from the Washington Office of Financial Management be incorporated into the document, using it for reference. And then language referencing the two appendices was added or modified to reflect changes. The amendment was presented at several public forums, and public testimony was taken consistent with the state and Lewis County public participation regulations. The Planning Commission reviewed the amendment to determine the validity and the overall impacts, taking into account the Growth Management Act, staff reports, public testimony, and recommendations of the Planned Growth Committee. The Planning Commission recommended adoption of the amendment.
Are there any questions? So most of this is come up, time that come up and ask questions. Yep, so it's Lorene. Please come up to the mic and ask your questions.
I got a copy of this from the library up in Randall
Lorene,
last week.
would you please state your name and address for the...
Lorene Inger, my physical address, 137 Kiona Road, Randall, Washington. My P.O. Box is P.O. Box 365, Randall, Washington, 98377. That's where I receive all of my United States Postal Service mail, at the post office box. Not at I don't have a mailbox at home.
So this is the question and answer period. If you have a testimony, that goes in the next
Okay.
part. But this
Got
is
lots
where
of
you-
questions that
This
will-
is where you ask questions.
Could change my testimony. My question on part labeled 6 in Exhibit B, it says that states that property owners' rights shall be protected. I don't know if this means personal property or real estate or any mineral or water rights on the land that any public person owns. I would like an answer to that. I think it should be clarified what kind of property that's addressing.
Is that under 6?
6.
6-0 and 6-1?
Just 6. It says, the rights of property owners shall be considered, well, that's, okay, private property shall not be taken for public use without just compensation having been made. The property rights of landowners shall be protected from arbitrary and discriminatory actions. Now, does that mean that, is it that talking about the personal property on the land or the actual land or any of the things that could go with the land, like mineral rights or any of that? I'd like it clarified, I think, unless it is somewhere that I don't know about. What does that mean?
That's also not something that's being revised. Would you like us to work with her after the meeting, or would you like it clarified
I
here?
think when you talk into definitions, we may need our civil deputy here.
Oh, so you can't answer that question, if
We're
that
not-
means...
we're not
What we're
changing
saying
that.
is that's in policy already, and we're not making any changes in
Okay.
that policy at this time.
Okay.
In reference to your statement, though, I can say that I don't believe that there's any reference to private, personal property in there. This is primarily a property, a real estate property document.
Real property? Okay, well, that changes something. Okay, question. Are the rights of Homo sapiens sapiens weighted higher or lower than corporate entities such as public utilities and manufacturing corporations when they're considering development?
I think a corporation is considered a legal entity just like a person. So we consider them all the same. There's no difference.
Okay. Do any of the federal agencies or departments such as BIA, DOI, or even United Nations land procurement agencies receive higher consideration than the average private property or landowner?
That one's easy, that one's no.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the biggie, what are incentives non-regulated incentives are used? Are these something that an entity gives to the county to move forward on some property or some development issue? Or is that something the county gives?
Where are you in incentives?
I am 6.1, non-regulatory incentives. And then there's something about land exchanges, land banking. I didn't know the company. I would like to know what land banking what that means in the county. What does land banking mean?
We have one established mitigation bank for wetlands.
Okay. Is a mitigation bank being formed by the county, by the, what is the shoreline community on the Kiona Creek Basin?
There are two separate processes. This is the countywide planning policies which guide our comp plan. The Shoreline Master Plan program is a separate process.
Okay, so they're not talking to each other about doing those type of things? They're just separate?
No, we're not talking to each other. They're two separate processes with two separate paths.
Okay.
I think what they're talking about there, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I get your drift on your question, what you're saying is if you put land into a land bank, like a wetland mitigation bank, and the city of Centralia, or Chehalis, is trying to do one of those, TransAlta is trying to do one of those, what we're saying there, just because you put in a land bank doesn't mean you're exempt from the rules and regulations. It doesn't matter what class you put your land in, here are the rules that apply to you on county jurisdiction.
Moving beyond that, is the county accumulating parcels of land that they are selling to anyone?
We do occasionally buy land. If, let's say we're going to put a road widening the road easement, and you say if you take that land from mine, you have to buy the whole property. You can't, because it's not worth as much once you take the easement out of the property. So on occasions, we have bought the whole piece of land. We use the assessment or the easement that we need, and then later on, we subdivide that, or I shouldn't say subdivide that, take that property and then put it back out on the market.
Okay, are you buying land in other states or other nations?
No.
Okay.
I mean, that's part of the answer to your question, I think, and where you're coming from on this is organizations, corporations, individuals have come and donated or made it known that their land is available for mitigation purposes, for wetland mitigation. This is not something that we go out looking for, digging for land to try to find, or if we do, we go to the property owners and we say to them, hey, your property would make a good mitigation, are you interested in selling it? It's not something that we go out and condemn land, take land for mitigation purposes. That's not done.
Okay. That'll shorten my statement later a little bit. Does the county have anything to do with the strip mining that's going to happen on Mount St. Helens? Or is that in someone else's land?
That's in a different county.
Mount St. Helens is?
Yes.
On the North Fork of the Green River? Or the Turtle
That
River?
property is all in Skamania County.
It's all
And it's
Skamania.
all Forest Service land, or BIA.
I think it was given to the Indians on September 9/11, I think, but,
But it's not in Lewis County.
okay. So you wouldn't be trying to mitigate all of that horrible thing in Lewis
I
County?
think we have a difference of opinion there, but no, it's not in Lewis County.
Okay.
We may be able to comment on it like any other individual, but it's not a Lewis County piece of property.
Okay.
And I don't think it's strip mining. I think it's actually deep mining where they drill a shaft in.
Next question, because I've seen it in several places, 8.6, 12.7, and 10.6, it says that water resources are to be managed for multiple and beneficial uses and alternative energy generation. Are you talking wind, solar, inline stream generators, or is someone going to start planting geothermal drilling going on? And are you taking that for public, any land for that for public?
If you look under H6, it
Okay.
says we'll encourage the use of other renewable energy sources. There are no projects planned at this time. I know there was some wind power that was going to go out in the west part of the county, but they were unable to sell those energy contracts because a lot of that alternate energy is very expensive. I know of no projects right now in Lewis County to do any of that.
Okay, that clears up a lot, except the land banking. I still have some questions and incentives. I still don't know if the incentives are what the county is giving to someone to develop, or the developers give to the county.
There's part of a SEPA process that they go through.
What is
and
that, SEPA?
The State Environmental Protection Assessment. And when they go through that, they have to mitigate for any damages they do. And one of them is they can go to a land bank. They don't have it. They go to a land bank and buy credit for mitigation for any wetlands they've disturbed. So it's land banking is some outside third party will have a piece of property that you can use or buy credits for mitigation. The county's not in that. We're saying that if you own this land and you're using it for wetland mitigation or land banking, you still have to follow all the rules.
Okay, so it is regulated, even though it says here that they're going to include non-regulatory incentives? So, I mean, that's what it says.
It's regulated.
Non-regulatory incentives shall be included in appropriate development regulation, 6.1. And, you know, assessment relief, does that mean lowering taxes for somebody?
No, that means if the piece of property, and this, how I know this part, if you have a conservation easement, property comes with a bundle of rights. So if you take that bundle of rights and said, I'm going to put a conservation easement on here, and that conservation easement says you're not going to log, or you're not going to mine, or you're not going to build a house on this or a business on this, when you give up that bundle of rights and that easement, then your property gets reassessed at a different amount because you've given up that bundle of rights, some of that bundle of rights. So if you had 1,000 acres and you said 500 of these acres I'm going to put into a conservation easement, and you record it on your deed, and you say, I'm not going to log this property, I'm not going to put a business on it, I'm not going to put a house on it, I'm not going to allow any mining, then the value of that property changes as you've put that conservation easement on there. And there's a new assessment done by the assessor's office that reassesses that property based on a conservation easement. And that's what they're talking about in those parts.
Okay, so if someone comes and changes your ability to use your land under...
No, you do that.
Okay.
You say,
but
I'm not...
if another jurisdiction does it, then you don't get any relief.
Jurisdiction that can do it.
It's your property rights. That's something you decide. Nobody does it from the outside.
Okay.
If I own a piece of property and they've got conservation easements, they've got family farm conservation programs, land trust, they've got farming land trust, and if you say, this is my grandfather's farm, I always want it to be a farm, and therefore I am going to write this land trust up in such a way that you'll never be able to develop this land for a subdivision and houses, it will always be a family farm. That changes the value of that property, but it gets included on the deed. Nobody can come in and tell you your property is now in this easement. You have to decide to do that and put that on your deed. No outside agency does that.
Okay. Well, that's about as many questions as I know enough to ask, and I'm sure there's a lot more. But you got a different time make a statement about adopting this?
Yes, there's a different.
Okay.
With regard to the Shoreline Master Program, there are hearings, there will be more hearings being held on that particular path. As Lee mentioned, it's a different path that they're going down, and you'll be notified of those meetings when they're happening. And I would like to apologize
Yes,
to...
there's a second time for a statement.
I would like to apologize to Lorraine for our Planning Commission. The Planning Commission, as you know, are all volunteers, and they were supposed to have a meeting last Tuesday, and they did not have a quorum show up, so they were not able to have a have an official meeting. That doesn't happen very often. They're usually pretty conscientious about being at those meetings, and
I think there was that weather scare that they were
There-
unwilling to drive distance at night.
there was part of that, but I want to apologize for that happening. Yeah, I know. We do have people coming from Packwood and Randall. So, and you know, the funny part of that is that one of the representatives who was from Randall did show up, but the weather was supposed to hit the I-5 corridor harder than it did the East End. So that's just a statement.
Are there any other questions?
Ron Averill from Centralia area once again. I just wanted to make sure that there's an understanding that when we're talking about this particular document, we're talking about the Planned Growth Committee, which is not just the county, but all of the city jurisdictions, incorporated city jurisdictions as well. They are general guidelines that they use because the county has the responsibility of making sure that anything in the Growth Management Act in terms of land planning is coordinated with the county objectives. And that's the reason for the Planned Growth Committee, is to put those together. And these policy statements are the statements that they use to establish how they do it. After that, each city will actually do their own growth management plan, as well as the county's growth management plan. And also, I wanted to clarify that the Shorelines Management Act is a different process, but it's done by the same people at the county and the same people at the city. There are questions that cross over. They're not done in isolation of each other. It's just that it's specific planning that the shoreline management requirements have, and others for areas that aren't in shorelines, but there is coordination.
Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions? Then I will close the question and answer period and open the public hearing for testimony. Oh, that's right. Would you like your opening comments be incorporated into the record of the hearing?
Yes, please incorporate both of our comments into the record. Thank you.
Can Stan say yes?
Yes, please.
So then I will open the hearing for public testimony. Does the board have any comments? Maureen, you're up. Just say who you are. We already have your address. We don't need your mailing address
My
again.
ignorance on film here. Okay. I had a lot of my questions. Lorene Inger from Randall area. In my opinion, I wrote this earlier. If you three commissioners sign this update into law, it takes effect immediately. I feel I will walk out of here and be served papers in the hall telling me that the county is taking my land property to some entity, an entity with lots of green money, of course. They can drill a geothermal energy plant into where my backyard is now. They have all the water they would need. The heat resides in all the volcanoes. Of course, this would not be discrimination against me, and the condemnation would not be arbitrary. Someone just wanted my land, even if I'm not selling it, and that person or organization or entity of some type will use these policies to further that end. In my opinion, every private land property owner in Lewis County should worry about these policies in Appendix B of Resolution 13579. And you, the commissioners, should attempt to strengthen the position of private property landowners before you sign it into law. Respectfully submitted, Lorene Inger.
I've got one quick question. Do you own your mineral rights on your land?
I don't know.
You do. You do not. And
I don't know. I think the state owns all of the water.
The state owns the water, but I do know that a good part of when they put railroads in, they gave them the mineral rights. I don't own the mineral rights under my land. So if somebody had the ability, or if they discovered it there, they have the mineral rights and they could come in and do that. That's already, unfortunately, federal law. And so, should you be concerned about that? Yes, if you have minerals under the surface of your land, that could be a problem. But that's not with this planning. That's not what this does.
Do they consider water minerals?
No, water is a different issue.
One comment on that. They have the right to the minerals. They don't have the right to access without your permission,
Okay,
okay?
that's a big worry. Thank you.
This is the
That's
issue,
all.
I think you'll find that this board at least shares your concern about private property rights. I think that we are all three advocates of private property rights and that those rights won't be infringed upon. I don't think you have to worry about walking out the door and being served and the property be taken away from you. There's a very specific process that would have to go through, which includes hearings like this, which are rather arduous sometimes, but if we are going to take property, which we rarely do, in fact, I think we've given more property back since I've been in office than we've taken for easements and things like that. So it is a process to go through. We don't take property, and we certainly don't take those issues lightly.
Okay, just wanted to get my word in. Thank you.
Ms. Enger, I appreciate your taking the time to get the documents, read them, and come in and ask questions. We encourage citizens to do that. And probably your statement you had, there's probably some things you'd modify as a result of our discussion. But if you have further questions, the things you'd like to ask, we're always open to have citizens come talk to us. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Any other public testimony? Then I will close the hearing for public testimony, and I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we amend Lewis County Countywide Planning Policies Resolution Number 13-579.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That is passed. And our last hearing is establishment of a new road crossing at the Chehalis River, and it will be named Mays Road, and changing the terminus to Schulte's Landing. Order of establishment number 201301.
That's not quite what I read here.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Elsey, Public Works Director, here with Larry Unselman, a 40-year employee of the county, so he has forgotten more about this than I will ever know. We're here to establish a new road crossing the Chehalis River named Mays Bridge Road, and we're changing the terminus of Hatchery Road. Hatchery Road will now come into the new Mays Bridge Road rather than coming into SR 6.
I think as we're probably all aware, it was the flood of 2007 that washed out the Chehalis River Bridge between River Road and Looting House Road at Mesco. This site was selected as the replacement site for the bridge. It's about 1/2 mile west of the old bridge location. Resolution 13-428, which was passed by this board on July 29th, ordered the county engineer to examine and if necessary, survey the proposed layout, acquire all the necessary right-of-way, then report his findings back to this board. The county engineer filed his report together with a survey map on November 7th, 2013. And generally that report stated as follows, that this establishment is necessary for a new road crossing the Chehalis River and to change the terminus of Hatchery Road. All right-of-way needed for the new road crossing the Chehalis River and the change in terminus of Hatchery Road has been conveyed to Lewis County by deed, free and clear of all unacceptable encumbrances, and recorded with the Lewis County Auditor. All acquisition was done in accordance with adopted procedure as per Resolution 09-381 and under the county's eminent domain authority. The new road crossing the Chehalis River and the change in the terminus of Hatchery Road will be constructed under the inspection of the Public Works staff, who will certify the completion of all such construction work, and also that it meets current Lewis County road standards as adopted by Lewis County Code 12.60. The county's 6-year transportation improvement program, adopted by the Board of County Commissioners on November 18th of this year by resolution, 13-514 estimates construction costs for the project at $2,900,000. And it is the opinion of the county engineer, who's sitting next to me here, that the new road crossing the Chehalis River and the change in the terminus of Hatchery Road should be established for the reason that it's necessary to replace the Looting House Bridge number 87 and is in the best interest of the public. Resolution 13-523, which was passed on November 18th of this year, set this date, December 16th, as the date for hearing the matter of accepting the establishment of a new road crossing the Chehalis River, herein named Mays Bridge Road, and changing the terminus of Hatchery Road in accordance with the provisions of RCW 36.81.070. This resolution, if passed, would order that the new road crossing the Chehalis River in the north half of Section 9, Township 13 North, Range 4 West, hereby be established as Mays Bridge Road, and also that Hatchery Road be changed by moving its intersection with State Highway 6 to the new Mays Bridge Road.
We've been asked why we chose Mays Bridge Road for the name of this road, and you know what, we've spoken with a lot of people about what this road should be named, and we've actually, in the end, we went back to the historical Metzger maps, which were drawn in 1937. And there's an old Mays community that was out in this area. As a matter of fact, at one of the open houses that we had for trying to determine what we were going to do with the old bridge and the replacement of the bridge, one of the residents came up to me and told me that the old bridge was called the Mays Bridge. And I think a lot of people had lost that in translation over the years. So we thought about a lot of names for this. We thought about Community Way. We thought about anything that could recognize the community's efforts and the hardship that they went through with the 2007 flood. And in the end, we came back to the historical community. And so it is our suggestion that we name this Mays Bridge Road.
I understand that you've got the Mays Bridge and the Mays Bridge Road. I understand where that came from. But the terminus where it lands on my side of the river, now that's Schulte Landing, right?
You can call it whatever you want to, Commissioner.
We can certainly sign that as Schulte Landing, yes, sir.
Are you finished with your staff report?
Yes, that concludes our staff
Or do you need more evidence showing Mays and you want to actually open the map so it's on the record?
I'd be more than happy to show you that if you'd like to see that. We do have the Metzger map.
You might just put it here on the table with that thing open.
Sure.
Sue might want to look at that because she lives right on the other side of the old Mays community.
Mm-hmm.
You don't remember that, Sue, right?
These old Metzger maps are, he used to call himself the map man, and they are really neat historical maps. They had the property owners on there, they would have the unofficial community names, and that's where we got Mays, is from the unofficial community name that was out in this area.
Are there any questions? Sue, you're not even going to ask them when they're going to build this? You have to come up on the mic to say that.
Oh, here it comes.
So it's named now.
My name is Sue Rosbach, and I live in Mescal, Washington. When are you going to build this bridge?
At this point, we're doing our best to go out to bid before April of this year. So
Okay, it goes out to bid in April, and they can start right after you accept the
Construction-
bid?
Yes, construction this summer, and hopefully completion before Christmas next year.
Great, thank you. Is any of this paperwork the design?
No.
Do you have the design yet?
We're about 98% of the design. We've submitted the environmental assessment to FEMA for review. That's out on comment period now. That should be back on January 17th. And at that point, then it has to, we finalized the environmental permits, and it has to actually go back to Congress. Since it's over $1 million for them to approve, that's about a 3-week period, we're being told. And then after that, we can go out to bid.
Okay.
Sue, this would have gone a lot quicker, but there was a disagreement with them over the naming of the bridge, and now that's finally resolved.
And what did they want it?
They want to name it Mays Bridge Road and Mays Bridge. So we had a vote, and I was outvoted.
What did you want it? You wanted Schulte's Landing?
Schulte's Crossing, that was, so I
What's
tried
wrong with
Schulte's
Mescal
Landing.
Bridge? That's what the old one was.
Don't go there.
Are there any other questions?
I won't go there. Just get the bridge in. I don't care what you call it.
There you go. I'm with you, Sue.
Yeah.
So what happened to Looting House? Is that going to be Looting House Bridge?
The Looting House Mill was all the way down by
I know where it
the end
is.
of Looting House Road.
You knew the answer to the
That's
question.
the wrong end.
Yeah.
You didn't answer the question. So you say it's not going to terminate on Highway 6. It's going to.
Hatchery Road isn't going to terminate on Highway 6.
What is Mays Road? Is it? Where does it go?
It will
It
terminate.
goes to Schulte's house.
It will go over to Looting House Road,
It'll go to Looting House.
from SR6 to Looting House Road.
Okay, so it is terminated. Mays Road is terminating on SR6.
That's correct. Hatchery Road will no longer terminate on SR6.
And then River Road just essentially going to be closed?
It will continue to go through, but there will be no crossing from River Road over to Mescal.
So what is it? It's about a quarter of a mile at most?
It's a loop road.
No.
I think it's about 6 miles.
Does it stay on the SR6 side? I thought it ended at the river.
No, it's actually a loop. There's two River Road.
Okay, there's two river roads. Okay. So this is essentially where, since we're coming up that hatchery area, we're just renaming that road Mays.
That's correct.
Okay.
The Hatchery Road will remain. This is coming off at milepost 37.16, which is essentially where Hatchery Road comes through now.
It's got my GPS right here. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Then I'll close the question and answer period. Tim, Larry, would you like your opening comments be incorporated into the record of the hearing?
Yes, I would.
Yes, I would, please.
Is there any public testimony? Any testimony of the board? Any other comments?
I would like to say that most of the comments made regarding Schulte Landing and Schulte Crossing have been tongue-in-cheek.
Yes.
We were really not seriously considering that. So there.
Who's we, Kimo-san?
Yeah, right. And we do appreciate the historical investigation that's been done to show us what Mays stood for and their history. Thank you.
I said mostly tongue-in-cheek.
Then we will close the hearing for public testimony, and I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the order of establishment number 2013-01, establishing the name Mays Road and the terminus of Hatchery Road.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Mays Bridge Road, please.
Mays Bridge Road, thank you.
Mays Bridge Road, okay.
So there's still time to change it, is that what you're saying?
We're inserting bridge.
Now call for the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Seeing no further business on our agenda, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.